Want to join the Sugyah Live? WhatsApp plus 19148 936 848 or email us at info@theshmuz.com. This is your chance to truly grow and elevate your learning experience. Thanks for joining today's session. The Sugyah is available live every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. You will receive More Makomos and will be in direct contact with Rabbi Shafier and the Sugyah community.
Down here, Zepman and nothing. So you got till Thursday night to explain it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we got some work to do. Let's get to work. All right, we're going to go over the tour quickly, the tour in the Bach, and then we're going to jump into this Rabbi Chanan, because this Rabbi Chanan is going to open our eyes to understand things beautifully and clearly. Okay, so here we have the Torah Yardei Reish Mem Vav, says the Torah as follows. There is no mitzvah of all the mitzvahs that is equal to Talmud Torah, ella rather, Talmud Torah keneged kol mitzvahs. Rather, Talmud Torah is keneged all mitzvahs kulam. Why? Why is it? The reason why Talmud Torah is shakol keneged kulam is for one reason, because Talmud is mevi lidei maisa. Now again, we had a problem that the Gross seems to have a very different version of this, right? The Gross seems to learn very differently. Again, what does the Gross say, gentlemen? I'm trying to open my window. Somebody answer while I'm opening my window, please.
Math issue.
Many mitzvahs. Millions and millions an hour.
Exactly. So this Torah seems to argue, because again, the Torah says the reason is because Talmud mevi lidei maisa. That's why Talmud comes earlier. This comes first. Therefore, if ever you have a competition between learning and maisa, the Talmud always wins. What do I mean to say? Hi, the fun of mitzvah Talmud Torah. If you had in front of doing a mitzvah and learning, if it's possible to do that mitzvah by somebody else, then you shouldn't stop learning. But let's say he can't do it by somebody else, he's the only one to do it, then yasa mitzvah Torah, so then stop your learning. And when you've done that mitzvah, you come back to your Torah. Now, why do we say that? Because no one argues the pshita the ma'isa gadol. Everyone agrees that in reality ma'isa is gadol. Why? Talmud only comes to bring you to ma'isa. When do we say that Talmud's greater? It's only when it's efshel asos. Okay, now, gentlemen, can anyone intelligently read this Torah? Or at least explain to me what he's saying?
You mean because he's arguing against the Gra? I mean, the Gra's, but
all right. Well, here let's go through the steps. According to the Torah, you have the choice between doing a mitzvah or learning Torah, right? Which one do I do? So here's how it goes. If it's a mitzvah that's efshel asos de'acherim, right? I don't have to do it. Somebody else can bury. There are enough people to go to the wedding, etc. In that case, limud Torah comes first. Limud Torah comes first. Why? Why? For a simple reason. Because Talmud mevi maisa, and Talmud is greater than maisa. You know why? Because Talmud brings to maisa. So anytime you have a choice between limud and asiyas mitzvah, as long as there's someone else who can do it, the answer is you do the learning. Why? Because Talmud mevi lidei maisa. All right. So far we got that. Very nice. However, if it's a mitzvah that's impossibly done by anybody else, I'm the only one who could do it. In that case, you got to do the mitzvah. No, wait, why? I'll tell you why. Simply, because Talmud mevi lidei maisa, and therefore what? Therefore, obviously, maisa is greater. Huh? You can't cut it both ways, my friend. Meaning, you just told me that really Talmud comes first. Why? Right again here, I have limud Torah or doing a mitzvah. If it's efshel asos de'acherim, limud Torah comes first. Why does limud Torah come first? Very simply, because Talmud mevi lidei maisa. Talmud is greater than maisa because Talmud comes to maisa. So which one's greater, Talmud or maisa? If I ask you which one's greater, what's the answer?
Talmud.
Talmud. Good. Perfect. However, if it's efshel asos de'acherim, then doing the mitzvah wins. Why is that? Simply because Talmud mevi lidei maisa. And if Talmud only comes to maisa, I mean, the greatness of Talmud is that it comes to Maisa. Obviously, Maisa is a great thing. Talmud is secondary. It only brings you to Maisa, but Talmud's main thing. Now, if that doesn't sound circular, I don't know like, you got to make up my mind. Either Talmud's great or Maisa is great. Not, you can't cut it. You can't burn the candle at both ends.
Talmud's Misa plus.
Oh.
Is Talmud plus Misa. It's Talmud plus leading to Misa. It does two things. So if there's someone out there who can do the Misa, who's not learning, obviously, l'chara, because if he's also learning, then it's not Shaila. He's not learning, so now we can have learning and we can have Misa. We can have both.
One thing, which is greater, Talmud or Misa? Which is greater?
If someone who's not learning can do it, it's better that I don't stop learning.
But here's my question. Talmud is only great because it leads to Misa. Why don't I do the Misa?
No, it's not only great. It's great because besides its inherent essence, it also leads to Misa.
Sugyah, so let it lead me to the Misa. Let me do the Misa.
No, but this other guy, he's playing his Nintendo. So let him go and bury the person.
How do you know what he's doing? Maybe he's learning also. Let's say everybody's learning.
If everybody's learning, then you got to go.
Is that true, by the way? I know what everybody's doing. I don't know, but his cheshbon isn't my cheshbon. All I know is you got to make up my mind. If Talmud is great because it brings to Maisa, then the Maisa is the better one. Elam, I know Maisa is not the better one, so Talmud is the better one. What difference? Efshel is not Efshel. I don't see any difference whatsoever.
We want to make sure that the Maisa gets done. So I can continue learning, and the Maisa will get done because there's other people to do it.
Why don't we want to make sure the Torah gets done? Learning Torah gets done. Why don't we make sure that? You're
always going to want learning Torah as much as possible. But Lamaisa, when a Maisa comes along that needs to get done, we want to make sure the Maisa gets done.
Where does it come from? Why do you say that? You only say, there's only one thing I know. I know one thing the Gemara tells me. Talmud Mevili de Maisa. That tells me the pecking order. It tells me Talmud is greater than Maisa because Talmud brings to Maisa. But that same logic also tells me that Maisa is greater. So you can't cut it both ways. You can't tell me Talmud is greater because it brings to Maisa, and that's why Talmud's greater. But on the other hand, it's not greater because really Maisa is greater.
So if someone else can do the Maisa, then I can keep on learning.
Well, where do you get that from? What are you basing that on? Where does this come from? From my heart, I want to say a Beichzor. I just want to spit some. It's no logic, but it's whatever. I feel that way. I feel good about it. It's a feel good Torah. I mean, this is what they call Rabbi YY calls it the Kumzit generation. If it feels good, you do it. If it doesn't feel good, you don't do it. So it feels nice to me. I like mitzvahs to get done. I like Torah to get done. So that's what I say. But the Gemara works in logic. Gemara works in systems, mechanisms. The logic we know is Talmud Mevili de Maisa. Talmud brings to Maisa. Now, either that means that Talmud is greater because it brings to Maisa, or it means the Maisa is greater because that's the end game. You can't tell me it's both at the same time. It's one or the other, not both.
It's definitely Talmud's greater.
So good. Then I don't care what happens. You should always learn. Don't do the mitzvah.
But the truth is the ultimate goal is that you should be doing Maisa also. You can't just do learning. You have to have...
Is Gadol a Talmud? Is learning Torah greater than Maisa?
In a vacuum, yes.
So why don't you? So learn. Don't do the Maisa. Let somebody.
If a Maisa comes along, which no one else is going to do, so I can't just say that let that mitzvah not happen.
Where does that come from? Where do you get that from? Where do you get that idea from? What tells you that?
The Torah.
The Torah tells you to learn all the time. The Torah tells you Talmud's greater than Maisa. Meaning, where you made up the Surah. If the mitzvah is going to be done, then don't worry about it. If it's not, then yeah, worry about it. You're inventing something. The Gemara doesn't say it. It doesn't make sense. It's not based on anything. You want it to be because it's nice, because I guess it's likely true because it's halacha. But I'm questioning, where do you get it from? And don't tell me the reason. The Torah is telling this is the reason. The reason for this all is Talmud Mivei de Maisa. The problem is that is backwards, because it either tells me do the Talmud and forget the Maisa, or it tells me no, the Maisa is the main thing and Talmud doesn't matter. What do you say? In this case, it's that. In this case, it's that. Where do they like? There's no mechanism, no logic. Gentlemen, I think it's silly play. Yeah.
Rebbe said something last year where it got me thinking for a second. I mean, a few things, obviously, but in particular in this regard, Base mitzvah. So Rebbe said that read Megillah, or Mace Mitzvah, you read Megillah, and then you do the Mace Mitzvah the after that.
Meaning only if you can't read the Megillah, and meaning first.
Right. So let's take that thought for a minute, and let's apply it here. All right. So Shahal Talmud maybe L'dei Maisa. So what are we saying? We're saying that Limud Torah is going to bring you closer to the Maisa. Now, we all know that this Maisa has to be done. We all know this. So the question becomes, who is going to do it? The person learning or the person who's not learning? Can we throw that into the equation now?
Okay, you could, but let me make it more complicated. What if it's me who has to do the mitzvah? Let's say it's putting on tefillin or lulav or matzah. So Talmud, right? Talmud is greater. Let me learn Talmud and forget the Maisa. Rav Shimon Bar Yochai and Chaverov, why do you have to stop a Kriya Shema? He should stay involved in learning because Talmud is greater because it brings the Maisa. I know Talmud isn't greater, really the Maisa is greater. So then even if it's Efshel Asod De'acherim, still you should do the Maisa, not the Talmud.
Because we
haven't
learned
seen a mechanism to split them up.
Wait, because we learned in Gemara Sukkah that certain mitzvahs that are time sensitive,
Right.
That those mitzvahs have to be done during that specific amount of time. And also we talked about this during how do we know that by the Badika, you don't say the bracha, but you say it. I'm sorry, you don't say the bracha.
On the bittul, we said we don't say bracha.
Right. So we do realize that there are time-sensitive issues, and this is where there's like certain things have to be done at certain times. You have no choice.
Someone, I agree with you, halacha. There's no question that it comes out that if it's efshel asod de'acherim, and then you learn Torah, don't do it. And if it's efshel, then do it and don't learn Torah. The question is, how did the Torah explain that? Meaning the Torah is explaining us the reason behind this. Why do we have this anomaly? If it's efshel asod de'acherim, you ignore it. If it's efshel, you do it. What's the mechanism? What's the logic? The Torah gave us the reason. The reason is because Talmud brings to Maisa. I say that reason is not a reason whatsoever. The reason it's terrible. If you told me it's exeris because of the Bible, okay, listen, the Bible says it. That's not what the Torah said. The Torah said, I'm going to explain to you the reason. Why is it? If it's efshel, drop the Torah, go do the mitzvah. If it's efsher, no, that's different. Then drop the mitzvah, do the Torah. I'll tell you the reason. The reason says the Torah is because Talmud maybe the Maisa. The problem is this tells me in all cases, either always do the Maisa because the Maisa is the main goal, or always do the Talmud because Talmud brings the Maisa. Why does it make a difference? If it's Efshir, it's one halacha. Efshir, it's another halacha. The Torah didn't help us at all understand any difference between the cases.
Maybe we don't understand. Maybe we don't understand the Torah yet.
I think yes, I believe you're correct. That I believe is correct.
Yeah, I was just thinking really quick about that earlier, and I was thinking that he must mean it could mean that it's only a Maisa if it's in Asher De'acherim. It's the only case where it's really a Maisa. Otherwise, it's not a Maisa.
You're on the right track. Now, why is that true, though? You're 100% on the right track. The question is, why do you say that? The Maisa is a Maisa. Oh, if it's the Efshai De'acherim, then it's a Maisa. But if the Efshai De'acherim is not a Maisa. I mean, you're on the right track. But again, the question is, Gali, why? What's the logic? The Torah is saying this is the reason. I don't hear it as a reason. All right, so let's see if the Bach helps. And I'll clue you in. I'll bet you the Bach isn't going to be such a help right away. But let's see. So again, the Bach explains to us a Torah. And not just explains to us a Torah, he explains to us why the Torah Dafka used that language and where he got it from. So let's see. Says the Bach on the Torah, that which the Torah wrote, that Talmud comes from Maisa b'chol makom. Where did he get that from? And Nirav kasha le bahach. And he had a kasha on the Gemara. So Parakaman Kedushin. And the Torah had a question Please stop that. The Torah Akasha on the Gemara and Daf Mem, and the initial Shaila Talmud Gadol Maisa Gadol. And the Gemara in Kedushin asks the question, which is greater, Talmud or Maisa? Well, Signa we come out with the conclusion, Talmud Gadol Talmud maybe the Maisa. And the Gemara concludes Talmud's Gadol, right? So basically, what happened? Initial Shaila B'zu, right? Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Kiva and the Chachamim were all in this Aliyah based Lud, and somehow the question came up. Which is greater, Talmud or Maisa? Which is greater? Rabbi Tarfon says Maisa is greater. Rabbi Kiva says no, Talmud's greater. No, Kulam all of them answered up. Talmud's greater. Why? Because Talmud maybe lead their Maisa. That's the Gemara. And the Torah has a problem. The mind of Kusa b'shelazu. What difference does it make? What they having a hashkafika? It's a shaila means a shaila halacha. They're having some hashkafa difference. Talmud's greater. Maisa. What's the difference? What are they talking about? And therefore. And what is the difference? Torah. Exactly in this case, we have an opportunity to do the mitzvah and Talmud Torah, and if that mitzvah can be done by anyone else, do not stop your learning. Why? The Talmud Gadol, Talmud's great because it brings the Maisa. But if not, if it's then Yasa mitzvah yachzil Torah. So then do it and come back to your Torah. Now, has it Bach helped so much so far? Not a lot, but let's see the next line. And the Bahala plea, because there's no machlokas. The pshita, it's obvious the Maisa Gadol that the Maisa is greater. Why? Because listen to the whole logic. The whole logic is the greatness of learning is it brings you to Maisa. So obviously, Maisa is the great thing. Must be the answer is Talmud's only great in a case where it's efshar to be done like derech. Gentlemen, has the Bach helped us at all? Now, clue you into something. The Bach certainly thinks he did. The Bach thinks he took a very obscure, illegible tour and shined a spotlight and explained to you exactly now you understand the tour. Now the problem is I don't see no spotlight. I see a lot of darkness. So the question is, what does the tour mean? How does the Bach explain it? So this is what we're going to see, Mitzvah Hashem, not tonight necessarily, but in the end, we're going to see it beautifully. All right,
Rebbe, can you combine what I tried saying, I think in the first year, and what Yaakov just said?
Okay, let me hear.
That really, your Rebbe's right. God, Maisa, you would assume, is obviously the greatest. Well, everything comes to Maisa, and we know that Talmud Torah, you get the most mitzvahs and the most char, and really, better, you should always be learning because you get the most mitzvahs and everything like that. You should be, but we know Hashem made mitzvahs, and Torah really is a chiyuv forever, which innately tells you that He wants you to do the mitzvahs, even though you have this innate chiyuv. But meaning the way Hashem gave us the Torah is since it's forever, it needs to be stopped to do the mitzvahs. But the question is which mitzvahs? And He's explaining to you the only mitzvahs that you actually need to stop for, that's considered a ma'aseh mitzvah that you stop for Talmud Torah, is something that's not going to be done by other people.
So, Ellington, I can't argue with what you're saying because you're eminently correct, and we're going to see Rav Elchanan says it, but I don't see a word in the Torah nor a word in the Bach that says anything about what you said. We're going to see Rav Elchanan says very clearly exactly what you're saying, but I don't see any hint, reference, nuance, nothing from what the Torah of the Bach said that even remotely hints what you're referring to.
I'm assuming the Bach knew that first step, and he's explaining the second step, meaning he's saying, who cares? So once you say that, do all mitzvahs. He's saying no. The only time you do mitzvahs are because that's considered a ma'aseh mitzvah that would override from the Torah.
Let's read Rav Elchanan and we'll see. I don't believe that you're able to really answer it yet, and I think you'll see it. You can't read it simply at all. There's one major step that's needed first. But let's proceed. Let's go on, and we'll do tonight's work, this session. Okay, here we go. We are reading now a Kobit Shurim. This is Rav Elchanan Wasserman. These letters are unfortunate. Hashem Yikom Domo. He was killed by the Nazis, and gentlemen, we have a long history of people who hate us. There's no shortage of creativity when it comes to killing Jews. No shortage of people who want to do it. And Rav Elchanan Wasserman was killed. The tzaddik was killed. All right. Anyway, not for now. Okay. But anyway, in Kobit Shiur and Chelik Beis and Yud, he discusses that Rambam that we discussed earlier. Hine Zelashon Rambam Sham. V'maya osig b'Torah v'Torah, right? The Rambam taught us that a man is obligated in Piriva, not a woman, but a man is. When's he obligated? By the time he's 17, and more than that, if he turns 20 and he hasn't had kids yet, he's mevatel mitzvah say. However, the Rambam goes on to say, v'maya osig b'Torah v'Torah. Let's say he's learning and he's really involved in learning. He's afraid to marry a woman because then he'll be busy earning a living. To support his wife. Torah. In that case, then he could delay. Why can he delay, says the Rambam? He's involved in a mitzvah of learning. We know the principle is osig mitzvah potem mitzvah. The kol shekain b'Talmud Torah, and Talmud Torah shakol keneged kulam. Surely, osig mitzvah potem mitzvah applies to Talmud Torah. That's the Rambam. Now we had a problem with the Rambam, and the Rav Chanan is going to deal with that. But so far so good. So the rule is that a man, if he's Torah, once you're 20, you have to get married and be osig pirivia. However, if you're involved in learning and getting married is going to be mevatel your Torah, and the mitzvah lima Torah patters you from the other mitzvah. Osig b'mitzvah pater min mitzvah. You don't have to get married. You could keep learning. Okay, now with Perikam and the Moy Cotton Daf Tes, the Gemara Moy Cotton Daf Tes. Yasu v'kami boy. They sat and they asked a long question. That's a contradiction. Psukim. Ksiv yikarihim ipnimim v'chol chavatzecha liyeshuba. Torah is more precious than pearls, and all of your desires, all of man's desires, do not equal it. Gemara makes a dik. Chavatzecha don't equal it. Hachavse shemayim yeshuba. Obviously, it means your mankind's desires don't equal Torah. Hashem's desires equals it. From here we learn that if you're involved in, if you have a mitzvah to do, stop learning and be osig a mitzvah. That's one pasuk. So that pasuk seems to tell us that Talmud Torah takes second step, leave the Torah aside and do the mitzvah. I think his mitzvah takes precedence over learning. Okay, v'ksiv. Over his second pasuk, it seems to argue. Stop that. See, the problem is that if I move the thing, it moves them. All right. Anyway, another passage says all desires don't equal it. Meaning what? Not just mankind's desires, but all desires. Even desires of Shemayim do not equal to learning Torah. That pasuk teaches us the opposite. If you have a Torah learning or mitzvah, forget the mitzvah, because all desires, even Hashem's desires, even mitzvahs, don't equal learning, and therefore mevatel mitzvah also with Talmud Torah. And so it seems to be a contradiction between psukim.
Rabbi, didn't we read this before in the Gemara? This is all from the Gemara. Was it from my cousin?
Yes, we said Perikam. He's
okay.
40. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And so Gemara's answer is here, and the mitzvah that can be done by acherim. That's when Torah takes precedence. Don't do the mitzvah, just learn. Here, where it says that no matter what, the mitzvah takes precedence, that's why mitzvah, that's ef shalasol. So again, and this Gemara Mo'akan is the first introduction that we see of a Talmud, something from the Gemara that explains us this difference of ef shalasos and ef shalasos. And the reason why Rav Chanan is quoting is because, again, this is the only really representation of the difference between ef shalasos and ef shal. Okay, good. Now, once this is true, says Rav Chanan and Vuar, the mitzvah she ef shalakam de'acherim, we see from this Gemara a great principle. What is that? If a mitzvah can't be done by anyone else, ein a nifter mitzvah idei Talmud Torah, then Torah does not pater you from that. We don't say osig mitzvah pater min mitzvah. V'kasha mashikas Rambam. So obviously the Rambam's wrong. The Rambam told us they're involved in the mitzvah limud Torah, and don't worry about the mitzvah perivia, because osig mitzvah pater mitzvah. Didn't you read the Gemara Mo'akan, Rabbi Rambam? The Gemara Mo'akan says if it's a mitzvah that's ef shalasos le'dechem, yeah, then you learn, forget the mitzvah. But if it's a mitzvah that's ef shalasos le'dechem, you have to stop learning and do the mitzvah. Perivia is a mitzvah on you. You, the gavra, have to have children. No one else can have children for you. So obviously it's a mitzvah that's ef shalasos le'dechem. Stop your learning, go do the mitzvah. How could the Rambam argue with him for his Gemara? Right? And so kasha mashika the Rambam osik mitzvah potem mitzvah. What does the Rambam mean when he says osik mitzvah potem mitzvah? The kol shkein b'talmud Torah. My kol shkein was there. What kind of kol v'chomer is it? Adarabba. Talmud Torah garli inyan zeh. Talmud Torah is worse. Why? The mitzvah periv he mitzvah she'ef shel kamadei achirim. A mitzvah periv it can't be done by anybody else. So we know the rule is that if it's a mitzvah, it can't be done by anybody else. Gemara Marikon told us the principle. Can't be done by anybody else. Stop learning, go do the mitzvah. How could the Rambam argue with the Gemara? All right, so far so good, right? Good, gentlemen? So far we know all this because we've done this before, right? Okay.
Yeah, that was one of our kashas, right?
100%. I honestly I saw this after. Although, well, the Stipler quoted, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I get credit for the question. I think I do, but I'm not sure. But whatever case, the question is a solid question. Now, it says Rav Chanan answer, V'tzarech lomer. Let me explain to you the teretz. I want to open your eyes to a new understanding. The Rambam is not saying don't do the mitzvah. He's saying delay the mitzvah. He's not saying don't have kids. He's talking about a delay, not a bittul of the mitzvah, a delay in the mitzvah. The fact that he can makayim it when he gets, let's say he's 25 or 30, he can makayim it then. In that sense, it makes it like a mitzvah that's efshel l'kaimei. It's not incumbent upon him to do it right now. He can do it later. Since he can do it later, it's like it's efshel l'kaimei. And therefore, when it comes to learning, we could say over here, osig mitzvah potem mitzvah. Says Rav Chanan, obviously, what does the Rambam hold? There's a difference between bittul mitzvah and ichur mitzvah. And bittul mitzvah means I'm mevatel mitzvah. Let's say it's Zman Krishma. I have just till 3 hours in the day to read Shema. And let's say it's already 2.5 hours. And I say, I'm learning. I don't care, I'm learning. We say, chas shalom. You're going to be mevatel the mitzvah. If you don't read it by 3 hours, it's not bekumecha. So you're mevatel mitzvah. Therefore, you have to stop your learning and read Shema. But when you're dealing with Perivia, he has his whole life to have kids. He could have it when he's 25, when he's 30. So, okay, right now he's 20. Let him learn. He's not being osing Perivia. He's not being mevatel. He's just delaying it. Since he's delaying it, but he can do it later, it's like it's efshar de'acherim. It's not, he's not being mevatel, he's just pushing it off. And therefore, the rule is osing mitzvah potem mitzvah.
Before we continue, if you're enjoying this content and want daily inspiration, join our WhatsApp group. Get uplifting messages directly from Rabbi Shafier himself. Just message +1 91489 36848 to get started.
So far, so good, right?
So he's saying that osig mitzvah potem mitzvah does not apply in a case where it's efshar de'acherim?
He's saying Torah learning, if it's not mevatel mitzvah, the rule is osig mitzvah potem mitzvah applies for limud Torah. And limud Torah is a ptura of osig mitzvah potem mitzvah unless it's efshar de'acherim. But delaying a mitzvah doesn't make it like it's efshar de'acherim. He could still do it. He'll do it later. I'll give you a classic example of what this refers to. The Rashba says the following: what if I make a shua not to put on tefillin till 2 o'clock in the afternoon? Now the halacha is I can't take a shua not to do a mitzvah. But says the Rashba, that shua is chal. Why? Because I didn't say I'm not going to put on tefillin today. I'm in the right, so you can put on tefillin the whole day. So I said I'm not going to do it till 2 o'clock. So I didn't make a shua. There's no shua in Har Sinai. I have to put it on 9 o'clock in the morning. And says the Rashba, that shua is chal. Why? Because I'm not taking a shua to mevatel mitzvah. I'm taking a shua. I won't do it the mitzvah till a certain time. Okay, what's wrong with that? And therefore, meaning there's a difference between ichur, delaying a mitzvah, and being mevatel. Being mevatel mitzvah, meaning the Rambam's rule is if you mevatel a mitzvah, then we say stop your Torah study. You can't be mevatel a mitzvah. Stop your Torah study. Do the mitzvah. But delaying a mitzvah is like efshar de'acherim. It's not, you're not being mevatel mitzvah. It's like somebody else could do it.
I understand all that. I'm just questioning the mechanism calling it osik mitzvah potem mitzvah, meaning because we know that it doesn't work when it's efshar de'acherim or time down mitzvah.
Let's let him do the flip side. Let him do the other side. So let's see. Now, what happens on the other side? That which the Rambam wrote that is kavachomer by Talmud Torah. When is the kol sheken? Torah never pushes off mitzvahs. Near the had tzarich levatel Talmud Torah b'shul kiyum mitzvah. When do we say you have to mevatel Talmud Torah b'shul kiyum mitzvah? Ein atam mishum the mitzvah Talmud Torah nitches mitzvah. It is not because Torah is pushed off any other mitzvah. Torah will push off any other mitzvah. No mitzvah will push off Torah. Why then do we say that if you have to do another mitzvah, stop learning? The mitzvah Talmud Torah is only called mitzvah. Talmud Torah is greater than all mitzvahs. And the commotion with the Levata Talmud Torah made derech eretz, but rather because just like you're allowed to stop learning to earn a living, because and everything that a man has to do, because the obligation to learn Torah is only chal on a person at a time when he's free, and he's bottle, and he doesn't have to do his needs. How do we know this? The crux is the pasuk says, "Vasafta deganecha." Didn't you read the pasuk in Shema? Vasafta deganecha, gather together your wheat. Obviously, you're supposed to work for a living. You're supposed to work for a living. The Torah is telling you that there are times when you're supposed to be osik b'Torah, but that's when you're free. You have obligations, you have to earn a living, you have certain things you have to do, you have to eat, etc. And those things during that time, you're not obligated in learning Torah. It's not that the other mitzvah pushes it away. There is no obligation of learning when you have to earn a living. There's no obligation of learning Torah when you have to do a mitzvah. The Torah says, even though Torah says there's a limiting factor. And the caveat is, but you got to earn a living, you got to gather together your wheat, you have to make brachas, you have to do mitzvahs, etc. So at those times, it's not that those other mitzvahs push off Torah, it's that there is no obligation to learn at that time. Why? Because the Torah says, learn whenever you, as the Chazon Ish says, I learn when I have free time. Whenever I have time, I learn. But if you're obligated on other things, you don't have time. And therefore, hachanami. If he has a mitzvah that's obligatory upon him, it's no worse than any other obligation. Then he's not mechuyev at all in learning Torah. But if it's a mitzvah that can be done by somebody else, or he himself could do it after Zman, then the mitzvah of limud Torah doesn't fall off of him. And since there's an obligation upon him to learn, he's involved in Torah study, he's part of the other mitzvah. But when it's a kavachom, why the mitzvah in a mitzvah, and Talmud Torah, when you're obligated and pushed off any other mitzvah, if is anything, it's more chomer than any other mitzvah. All right, let's just go through the steps, and then we're going to see exactly what Rav Chanan is saying. I've limited Torah versus siyas mitzvah. Right? So here's the rule. The rule is asug mitzvah patum in a mitzvah, meaning any time that I have an obligation of learning Torah versus any other mitzvah, Torah study trumps it always. Why? Because Talmud Torah keneged kulam. Talmud Torah is the biggest mitzvah, and it pushes off any other mitzvah because you're involved in the biggest mitzvah. Obviously, don't do a lesser mitzvah. However, here's the sort of the iffy part about it. If it's a mitzvah, right? I have a mitzvah, let's say Shema. It's a mitzvah of eris. It's a time-bound mitzvah, right? If that's true, then at that time I'm not obligated in limud Torah. Why? Because the Torah said, learn in your free time. And you also have to earn a living, and you also have to do mitzvahs, and many things you have to do. The rest of the time, any other time other than your obligation times, you should be learning Torah. But if you have to earn a living, or if you have to do mitzvahs, you're not obligated in limud Torah. But the point is no mitzvah of limud Torah, right? It says but it says you're supposed to work for a living. It's a stira. And what's the answer to the stira? The answer is there are times when you aren't obligated to learn. So therefore, if it's a mitzvah, that's it's not a mitzvah of Torah versus another mitzvah. There is no mitzvah of Torah. The minute I have another mitzvah that's obligatory upon me, it's a mitzvah of veris, or it's the point is at that moment it takes off the obligation to learn. Why? I'm obligated to learn in all of my free time. Any free moment, I'm obligated to learn. But there's not a free moment. If I have to earn a living, I have to gather my wheat or whatever I have to do, that's not a free moment. I'm not obligated to learn. So if I have an obligation to do a mitzvah right now, I'm not obligated to learn. It's not that learning Torah is weaker. It's that the obligation of limud Torah is only in your free time. Therefore, if you have an obligation to do another mitzvah, you don't have an obligation to learn. So therefore, if the mitzvah If it's a mitzvah, then there's no mitzvah leaving a Torah. So it's obviously it's not also mitzvah potter mitzvah. You're not obligated. There's no mitzvah leaving a Torah. If, however, it's a siyas mitzvah versus leaving a Torah, and the mitzvah is efshalas, so de'acherim, then I have a full bona fide chiyuv and obligation to learn Torah, and that obligation to learn Torah is more powerful than anything else. And so, if I have an obligation to learn the mitzvah leaving Torah, pushes off any other chiyuv. I can't whistle right now because my whistle mechanism is not
Rabbi,
working.
so why is the 20-year-old who's not learning, who pushes off, considered whatever it says, not good things about him?
Okay, now if he's not learning, so he has an obligation of peer review, no heter.
And therefore he's
mevatel mitzvah.
It says what did Rambam said a lashon about him? It said
cursed be his bones, all kinds of bad things, all kinds of not good things. But here's the point. The Rambam saying, right, the Rambam is saying like this. If you're involved in Torah study, you have a right to say, I'm not being mevatel the mitzvah peer review, I'm delaying it. Since I'm delaying it, what that means is I'm not obligated to do it right now. The Torah doesn't say right now you have to do it. I could push it off till later and still do it. So therefore, it doesn't take away my chiyuv of Torah. If it doesn't take away my chiyuv of Torah is also mitzvah potter mitzvah. If it's a mitzvah veris, I got to do by 8 o'clock, by 9 o'clock. And then what it says is there's no obligation of learning Torah at that moment. Why? Because you have to do this mitzvah. But if I could push it away, I could push it off to later and still do the mitzvah, but do it later, so I'm still doing the mitzvah. In that case, it doesn't get rid of my obligation of learning Torah by also mitzvah potter mitzvah. Gentlemen, do you hear what this Rav Chanan is saying?
I hear it, but I have a certain little problem. It seems that for certain mitzvahs, the mitzvah of Torah learning is not there, because there's a mitzvah to make mezainis. There's a mitzvah
Mark, can I paraphrase it a little better? Anything that you're obligated to do, or let me say even more simply, you're obligated to learn in all your free time. All your free time you're obligated to learn. Now, what's your free time? If you got to earn a living, that's not called your free time. You're obligated to, so you don't have to learn that. If you're obligated to do a mitzvah, let's say it's Shema or it's benching, whatever it may be, you're not obligated to learn them because that's not your free time. Any free moment you have, any moment that you don't have another obligation to take care of, another serious hechra, you're obligated to learn. So I have to ask myself, do I have an obligation? So if it's my work hours, I don't have obligation to learn because it's not my free time. If I have a mitzvah obligation, it's not my free time. Any free moment I have to learn Torah. That means any free moment.
So let's jump into making a parnasa, because for Kriya Shema, for davening, different things, it's a lot easier. You know, you say Kriya Shema and you're finished with your obligation.
I have to make $1 million a year, so I have to work 12 hours a day, 15 hours a day.
Whoa. So what happens? Hashem is of course wonderful and great, and 10th month of the year, you made your $1 million already. Do you have to work the next 2 months? No. So maybe you should stop working those 2 months and go sit and learn.
You should, if you can. If you wouldn't destroy your business or whatever, you should. That's what the Chofetz Chaim used to do, is to keep his store open enough hours.
Right.
Now, unfortunately, we can't do that because my boss is going to fire me. I'm going to lose my, whatever. So my business is going to fall apart. So we don't have that option. But there's no question you should try to work as little as you can to earn what you consider to be your necessary living. I have a certain standard of living. I can't ask my kids to go in rags. I have to drive a car. I have to wear suits. So I have a certain normal standard of living. And what's the normal amount of shtaddlus the person has to do? But by the way, a person is allowed, the Chofetz Chaim says clearly, you're allowed to broker deal with Hashem. Like Hashem, let me work as little as possible. I promise I'll fill the rest of the time in. And if you're a person who actually does that, many times Hashem will allow you to work less and less. I know people work 5 hours a week. I know people work 5 hours a week, earn a handsome living, and the rest of the time they spend learning, serving Hashem, whatever.
How much does Rebbe spend every week on the label makers?
I'm not going to discuss that, but not more than 5 hours. But okay, but yeah, but it's a nace, gullet. It is a nace. One day I'll tell you the miracle. It is a miracle. Whatever. Anyway, bottom line is, you're allowed to. But the point is, I'm obligated to learn any free moment. But free moment means a free moment. If I have to eat, if I have to, have to bathe, have to take care of whatever normal hechrech, normal obligation that I have, that's not called free time. Now, obviously, if I have a mitzvah, and the Torah says do this mitzvah, that's not called free time. Any time that you have no obligation, either to earn a living, to take care of your bodily needs, or to take care of your mitzvahs that you have to, and that's called free time. You're obligated to fill up all of your free time with learning Torah. But that's exactly the point Rav Chanan is saying. It's not that any other mitzvah pushes off Torah. Chas v'sholom. Torah is the most important mitzvah, and it pushes off any other mitzvah. It's just that if I have another obligation upon me, there is no mitzvah limit Torah. So if it's ef shalasos leidechem, there's an obligation upon me. I have to bury this. There's nobody going to bury him. So there's an obligation that falls on my head to bury him, because if I don't bury him, he won't be buried. So in that case, it's not that the Torah gets pushed off. It's that the Torah, I'm not obligated in learning at that moment. Why? Because I have a different obligation. I'm obligated for a mace. At that moment, no obligation in the Torah. But if it's a mitzvah that can be done by other people, I'm not obligated to do that mitzvah, so I have an obligation to learn Torah. The mitzvah of learning the Torah is osik mitzvah, pater mitzvah, paters me from that other mitzvah. I'm not allowed to do that other mitzvah. Why? Because I'm pater from it. It's beautiful. Shlomo, you hear this? This is gorgeous. This kafta.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to fit into the Torah though.
Oh, thank you very much. It doesn't fit in the Torah at all. Matter of fact, now Rav Chanan, as great as he was, if he argues with the Torah, they throw him out of the Rosh Yeshiva club. So that's the problem. We're going to have to
defending the Rambam.
Yeah, but the Rambam gets his halacha from the Torah gets his halacha from the Rambam. That's the problem. The Torah is really paraphrasing the Rambam. He's really quoting the Rambam. So that's the next step we're going to have to see. But that seems coming attraction. But let's make sure we got the split first. Again, Rav Chanan is telling us an eye-opening concept. That was the kasha we had. Why is it that you don't say asik b'Torah, meaning I'm learning Torah? Why don't you say I'm pater from all the mitzvahs, because asik mitzvah, pater mitzvah? Rav Chanan says you're right. We should say it, except one problem: you're not obligated to learn always. Why? You're only obligated to learn in your free time. But if you don't have free time, let's say you're obligated to do something else at the moment, there is no obligation of learning. So really the rule is mitzvah leaving the Torah pushes off any other mitzvah. It has kedima and it'll push off any other mitzvah. But that's presuming that you're obligated to learn. If you're not obligated to learn at that moment, because you're only obligated to learn in your free time, it's not free time for you, you don't have a mitzvah limit Torah, so it doesn't push off anything. And that's exactly the difference. If it's a mitzvah, it's efshalasazadeh then you're not obligated in that mitzvah, and there's free time for you. You're obligated in learning Torah. Now you're also mitzvah, pater you from any other mitzvah. If it's efshalasazadeh, it can't be done by anybody else. You're the only one who can do it. You're obligated to do that mitzvah. At that moment, it's not your free time. You're not obligated in learning Torah. You don't have a mitzvah limit Torah, so your mitzvah can't push off anything else. There's mamish kafta v'ferach.
So basically, what we're saying is that when a guy says he's going to stay in learning and pushes off getting married, it's just like the same as the guy who can earn his parnasa in 10 months and learn for 2 months. He can for 2 months because he only needs 10 months, so he can hold off.
Right. Basically, what the Rambam's saying is ichur mitzvah. You're allowed to delay the mitzvah period. Why? Because you're not being mavatal. I'm not saying I'm not going to have kids. I'm 20 years old right now, right? I'm 20 years old. I'll get married when I'm 24. I'll have plenty of time. It's just from 24 till what, you know. I'm just pushing.
It does seem from the version that there is an end to that time, that you shouldn't wait longer than.
Yeah, listen, at a certain point, you know, there are many reasons why you can't wait too long anyway. And Bisman is by the way, it's also only if you're totally free from Hirurim, which is very debatable in our day, Right. I'm not sure how. But again, it has to be, as the Rambam clearly seems to indicate, you have to be able to support a marriage. If you're going to get divorced, then it ain't no mitzvah neither. So, but all right. Gentlemen, do you hear beautifully how this Rav Chanan answers up the Rambam?
Yes.
A resounding yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, now, but here's the problem. As Binyamin Pesach pointed out, this is gorgeous. It's beautiful, but it fits into the Torah like I'm a Martian, like I'm a leprechaun. Like it don't fit into the Torah. Because again, the Torah told us nothing like this at all. What the Torah was saying was this whole business about, let me just get that slide here. The Talmud Mevdei Maisa. This one is Talmud Mevdei Maisa. This one isn't. Like, well, this has no shaykhs to the Torah. And again, the problem is that the Torah is the Rambam because he's quoting the Rambam. And Rav Chanan, as great as he is, as great as he was, he can't argue with the Rambam because that's like arguing with the, You don't argue with
It sounds
Rishonim.
like that's our biggest problem is we don't understand what it means when it says Shetalmid Mevidei Maisa. We don't know what that means. So if we're like, we can't stick anything into it.
Right, right. So that is our challenge to figure out what this means. What does meaning? We have a beautiful reading of the Rambam. We have a beautiful understanding and answer to our question. Why is it that we don't? This is the big catch we started with. Osig mitzvah, patam mitzvah, the biggest, the Talmud Torah shakel connected kulam, right? The Gemara tells hundreds of mitzvahs every daf of Gemara. So surely that should patam me from every other mitzvah in the world. Says Rav Chanan, you're right, 100% right. Of course it does. But that's one assumption. You're obligated in learning. You have a mitzvah limit Torah then. And says Rav Chanan, the mitzvah limit Torah is only in one time, only when you have free time. But if you have other obligations, there's no mitzvah limit Torah. Savta the Genecha says that you gather and you wheat. Gather and you wheat, you have to earn a living. You have to do other needs that you have as a person, you have needs, etc. At those moments, you're not obligated in learning Torah. So of course, if I have a mitzvah, Kuras Mace mitzvah, I'm obligated to bury that person. It's not free time. I'm not free. Any free moment, any free moment I'm going to learn. I'm not free. I have to do this mitzvah. I'm not free. I have to earn a living. I'm not free. I have to eat. I have to do whatever. So any free moment, I'm obligated in learning Torah. But it's not a free moment, so there's no mitzvah limit Torah. So it says Rav Chanan, the whole kasha doesn't begin. Mitzvah limit Torah is bigger than anything. It pushes off every other mitzvah in the world. And of course, also mitzvah patam mitzvah. But that's assuming that you're obligated in learning Torah. You're only obligated in learning Torah if there is no other obligations upon you. If you're obligated to do first mitzvah or Smei Chosan Kal, whatever the mitzvah is, you're not free. You don't have every free moment you're obligated to learn. That's not a free moment.
This fits nicely with the Vilna Gaon also, no?
I'm not sure. Let me hear why.
Because the whole cheshbon of the fact is of whether how many mitzvahs it is only comes along when he's comparing to Efshar al Acherim. So when he's Efshar Acherim, he says, "Oh, I want to do the mitzvah. It's an important mitzvah." But Lamaisa, if it's a mitzvah that you can't absolve yourself from it. So you could be worth a million mitzvahs. It doesn't make a difference. I got to do it. I got to do what I got to do.
You're right. The problem is the Gra didn't really say this. The Gra should have spoken this out. We're gonna have to see what the Gra really means. We'll see. You may be right, but we'll see. It's not as simple because the Gra never mentioned a word about this. And the Gra was talking about when you chayiv and not chayiv in mitzvahs in limit Torah and not.
Doesn't he mention the Efshar al Acherim?
Yes, but he doesn't explain this point though at all. Meaning, all right. Well, let's see. Let me leave the Gra out for a moment because I'm not 100% sure how difficult it's going to be. We'll see. But for sure, the Torah we cannot read. The Torah is illegible. Is a business about Talmud made the mice and not like the whole thing. Mamish has no. It's a very simple. It's a simple split. Rav Chanan says simply, "Osig mitzvah patam mitzvah is true always. Anytime you have a mitzvah limit Torah, patam you from any other mitzvah. Why if it's the Efshal do I have to stop learning? The answer is it's not that other mitzvah pushes off the mitzvah limit Torah. I don't have a mitzvah limit Torah. Then I'm only obligated to learn when I'm free. If I'm obligated in something else, so it's not free time. I don't have a mitzvah limit Torah, so there's no competition. Torah against any other mitzvah, Torah always wins. But if no mitzvah limit Torah, nothing to talk about. Shabbos is shokol connect. Shabbos is but it's only time Losei of Shabbos is on Saturday. On Tuesday, you don't have the Losei. Limit Torah is the same. Limit Torah is only when you're free time. You don't have free time, you're not good. But again, what is free time? It means you have to be very judicious.
It makes you interesting. Some of the stories, like the mice, the guy came to the yeshiva and he was late. So he said, "Well, you're late." He said, "Well, there's a guy drowning on the way and I saved him." So the mashgiach told him supposedly it would have been better if you'd gone a different routes to yeshiva.
I mean, of course, if you pass there, you have to jump in. I think the problem with the story, the way I heard it was he was happy that look what he did, this great mitzvah.
Right, yeah, like as opposed to his learning.
Right. The mashgiach tried to point out, yes, it's true. You had to do it and you did a great mitzvah. Had you not had that, you had a greater mitzvah, meaning you would have been learning. Right. But the point is that you're not obligated. By the way, had he let the guy drown then, what would he have been called?
Rotseach.
Yes, Rotseach, yes. Okay, L'sama Adam Reacha. Yeah, and probably not, but certainly an Avarian who's he's obligated. I mean, if you're on the scene and a Jew's drowning, you're obligated to jump in. Learning. Ours is not to do. Ours is not the reason why. Ours is to do, but to do and die. Do and die. I got to get that. There's a charge of a light brigade. Love to get that for next year. We're going to have that. It's going to be a big sorrow.
But if you don't know how to swim, Rebbe, if you don't know how to swim, you don't have to jump in.
No, but you do have to throw in a life buoy or a rope or a stick or something, you know, or
Yeah.
call 911, something. I don't know.
For
you know.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen. So we'll pick up Mitzvah Shem. We're going to try to answer this tour. That's maybe on Thursday night, and maybe we'll finish the Sugyah by Thursday night. I'm not sure, but we have to answer this Rashi that we this Tavos and Liros Hashem. They go up, and we got to figure out Pshat and tour. So Thursday night, Mitzvah Shem, scenes of coming attractions. All right, gentlemen.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay.
Bye, Rabbi.
Okay.
you.
So,
Thanks for
okay.
joining us for today's podcast. We'll be posting more here, so be sure to come back for new content. For daily inspiration, join our WhatsApp group by messaging +19 1489 36848 or visit theshmuz.com for more resources. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at info@theshmuz.com. Looking forward to having you with us again soon.